A little while ago, I reached out to a company called Epilogue who had this exciting product out there called the GB Operator, which is what I'm holding in my hot little hands right now. And this device allows you to connect through USB to a computer, a Mac, a Linux computer like the Steam Deck, a Windows computer like the ROG Ally, and what you can do is take your Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance cartridges, and you can play them right inside of a little GB Operator window. And of course, you can also customize the way that you want these games to look a little bit. It uses an emulator to play these ROMs, but what's incredible is just being able to take your physical collection and try out these games. Some of them may have been sitting on your shelves for decades at this point, and be able to play them in whatever setting you might want to. So you might want to hook it up to your Mac computer, or you might want to, like I have done, hook it up to the ROG Ally and play outside some of your classic Game Boy games like Donkey Kong from 1994, which happens to be my favorite Game Boy game of all time. And you can save the data that's on your cartridge to your platform of choice. You can not only save the ROM file, but you can also save your save games that are on the ROM file. And as I've been digging into some of these classic games, I've noticed that some of my save games have disappeared. The batteries must have died within the cartridge. I popped in Super Mario Land 2 and the 6 golden coins, my original Game Boy cartridge that I bought for my original Game Boy, and all the saves were wiped on the thing. But it's really incredible to have that ease of use. I was trying out all kinds of really cool classic games that I haven't seen in a long time, like Splinter Cell, Pandora Tomorrow. The Dick Tracy game, which actually is a much better experience than you think it's going to be. The classic Sunsoft Batman game for Game Boy is really damn cool. Checked out Batman Begins that EA made for the Game Boy Advance, and actually that's a pretty solid game. One of the coolest ones that I tried is this one that's plugged in right there, is Tron 2.0 Killer App, which has a full story mode that's tied to the PC game, which came out around the same time, but it also has the classic Discs of Tron game and the Tron arcade game installed on this little Game Boy Advance cartridge. And so I've been going through my whole library and just playing some of these games, and I recognize that you can just get emulators and you can have access to lots of ROMs out there. Not to mention the fact that Nintendo's been doing a pretty solid job at fleshing out their libraries on Nintendo Switch Online plus expansion pack, but you might not have a Switch. You might have a collection of Game Boy games that have been sitting around for a little while. You might have a Steam Deck. I'm pretty sure you have a computer of some kind, and this thing costs $50 US and it ships all over the world. You just have to go to the Epilogue website. It was very easy to set up on the ROG Ally. In fact, I streamed a bunch of Game Boy games when I set it up on the ROG Ally. I also was able to set it up on the Steam Deck, and it is a little bit more cumbersome because there's some Linux prompts and things that you have to do on the desktop mode, but all of the instructions are up on the Epilogue website. I figured out how to do it, so I'm pretty sure if you've got a Steam Deck, you'll be able to figure out how to do it. Now, this is really just like the Polymega system. This is really for people that have a library of games and they want to use their library of games and maybe use their save games as well and back up their library and back up their saves. That's why I think this thing is so damn cool. I really get a kick out of taking the physical media that I have off the shelf, popping it in, and being able to take this trip back in time. And it's so easy to use. It's so effortless. What they've done is you've got basically a window that gives you all of the data, and you can choose to customize the emulation settings. You can tinker a little bit with the audio. You can tinker a little bit with the video. There's a fast forward function built within the emulator as well. I did find that it wasn't flawless. There were some games that had some really weird audio or some scratchiness, just like a lot of emulators out there. And so what I had to do a few times was monkey with the settings a little bit, but more often than not, it just meant a restart of the app and everything was fine. By the way, you can play the Steam Deck version of the GB Operator software on the game side. You don't have to play it on the desktop side once you've installed it. You can add it to your Steam library and it just pops up there. And of course, there's probably tons of different ways that you can customize all the graphics settings for the way that it's going to look in your Steam library. And once you start to import all of the cartridges that you have in your library, you can do all kinds of cool things to set that up in your Steam collection or whatever setting you're going to use to be able to access these games. I just think that this is a pretty killer little device. I think it's so small and so cute as well. You could almost see somebody fix this to their portable system of choice, and you'd be able to just plop in your cartridges like you're playing a classic Game Boy game, which is pretty damn impressive. I'm not suggesting that you do that, but it's small enough that someone could do that. It is kind of crazy that Nintendo hasn't done something like this themselves for people that are hanging on to their libraries. I guess they could do this where it works with the Switch hardware or something like that. And Epilogue is working on a Super Nintendo version of this, which is really cool as well. And I think we're going to start to see a lot more. I mean, retro gaming is as big as it's ever been. Emulation is massive. There's all kinds of emulation options out there. But once again, I just think that this is pretty damn cool that you can use your existing physical cartridge library as if it's brand new again. One game that I played for a few minutes there that just blew me away was the Medal of Honor Infiltrator game from 2003. EA's got all the music. They've got these black and white film reel clips from footage from World War II, and the sound effects are cool, but it's like an update from one of those old run and gun scrolling type of games, like Rambo or something like that, except it's framed with early 2000s sprite-based graphics and cool little animations. Super impressed by that. And that's what's exciting to me, is being able to dive back into this library, play games like Tokitori that I haven't played in ages, and just be charmed by these classic games. It gives me all kinds of ideas for buried treasure segments as well. And another thing to consider with what Nintendo's been doing with the subscription stuff on the Nintendo Switch is that they are bound by agreements and licenses, and you might have a huge catalog of games that have cool music or some licensed characters and stuff, and there's a very good chance that you might not ever be able to see those games again unless you play them on your cartridge, or if you're off collecting a bunch of cartridges at retro game shops, which I like to do. You'll notice that some of the cartridges I've been popping in have price tags in them because I bought a bunch of games that have appealed to me, especially side-scrolling superhero games. So yeah, I've been super impressed being able to dig back into my classic Game Boy Advance, and Game Boy Color library. Some excellent games in there. The GB operator costs $50 US, and Epilogue ships all over the damn world. I wouldn't say that it's absolutely super easy and fully flawless in every type of scenario and situation. You may have to restart a bit. It may be a little clunky to install, but once you get it going, there's no doubt it's pretty damn impressive. I'm going to give the GB operator an 8.5 out of 10.